Hey everyone, it is Ellen Teresa from Advocate of Soul. And as many of you know, I love to just bring the human story forward. And I feel like in this time in the earth where we're going through all these transitions and there's so many things happening, that everybody has something that they can offer and give. A lot of times we think we don't have anything to say. Well, what are we going to say? What are we going to talk about? What's this going to look like? And the reality is, all Advocate Soul is about is your story, just your human journey, whatever aspect you want to share. So all of you know that these are unedited, unfiltered. I do nothing to them whatsoever, and then they come up the next day. And it's an honor today to have with me Shantel Morris, who I met, who lives in England and where I live actually, and I'm not there right now. I'm currently in Florida, but I'm just thankful that she's decided to come on, that she's going to share her journey. She's going to share her story. There's a lot to this precious soul. There's a lot of light, a lot of radiance, a lot of wisdom, and a lot of strength. And so, Chantel, it is a real honor to have you here today.
Oh, thank you, Ellen. Thank you for having me.
So I know that you have a it's like a business, or you could even call it a charity that is called the Morris Mission. But in order to get to the Morris Mission, there's always these back steps, isn't there, to get somewhere. So I would love it if you would just tell my audience your journey and how you came about, and we'll just take it from there.
Sure. Strap in, guys, strap in.
Okay.
And Ellen and I, we got the memo to wear orange.
Yes, we did.
So, Morris Mission came from my personal experience, where unfortunately, there was a time where I was in an abusive relationship with my ex, and it got really volatile and to a point where I realized that I needed to get out. It wasn't safe. I was losing my mind, and I needed to, not just for me, but for my son. At the time, he was about 5, and it was time to go. So at this point, I realized that I needed to leave. Unfortunately, my ex would not leave, and I didn't know where I could turn to, where I could go. And I ended up going to the courts and leaving. Eventually, I was able to leave, sold my house, lost my job. It was such a collective of everything. I was isolated anyway, because I think with the abuse, you sort of get isolated. Um, so I was kind of really stripped back to nothing. It was my son and I, and my son, it was really difficult as well for my son. As time went on, I'd left, sold my house, lost my job, and then we moved into a rented apartment, 2-bed flat. Everything seemed to be fine. We had a few Mickey and Minnies running around, but we could deal with that a little bit. And then it came to a point where the landlord wanted her property back. Now, in the UK, we have laws that the landlords can have their property back at any time, and you get a notice. Yeah. So we had a notice, Section 21, no fault eviction, and the time came when we were evicted.
Do they
So
put a time limit on that? Do they say like you have 30 days before you go? Or, I mean, they don't say
it's normal.
immediately.
It's normally about 60 days.
Okay.
It's normally sort of that sort of 2 months, or whenever, if it depends on the landlord. If the landlord wants you out, it can be very quick. It could be 60 days, or it could be at the end of the tenancy. Um, in my case, it was fairly quick, but the court, if you go through the courts, it takes a little bit longer. And in theory, every landlord has to go through the court if they're challenged by the tenant.
Now, can I,
So
before you
yeah,
continue sharing your journey, um, so do most people just roll over and say, okay, the landlord's in charge, I guess I gotta go?
that's right. There's so many people out there who feel very intimidated by society and what the paper says, and this is what we have to do. Um, but then at the same time, you're thinking, in my mind, I was thinking, well, where am I going to go? If I leave here, I can't find anything else. I've tried, I've looked through all the papers, I've looked at trying to be with family or friends, and there just wasn't that opportunity for me. Some people are very blessed. They have, lots of friends or family, or their family might have some money.
Mhm.
I mean, it'd be great. I'd just say to my bank of mum and dad or whatever, but there are people out there who don't have that support. So yeah, eventually we were evicted, my son and I. And on that eviction day, and it was kind of just me again, it was on my own, packing up everything and didn't know what was happening. From day to day, I was like, where am I going? I
Mhm.
don't know. I'd call up and I'd say to our local authority, where are you putting me? Where am I going? We don't know. I'd send emails to, local MPs. Help me, doctors, help me. This is stressing me out.
Sure, sure.
Yeah. And it was just a matter of, well, you just have to go with the procedure.
You just have to go. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, I have like a high justice meter. And so this
Yeah.
thing of like you just got to go with the procedure when you have a child and you're there and it's just like it's almost like I mean, I think it could maybe have an effect on people differently. Maybe for some people that brings about their inner roar and their inner power, like, okay, I have to follow this procedure. Well, I'm gonna, okay. And maybe for other people, it maybe makes them feel powerless. Which one were you? Were you in the middle, either side?
Um, I am very much, I've been a fighter all my life.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Mentally, emotionally, I've always felt I've had to fight. So for me, this was like, okay, here we go again. I've
Mm,
got to fight again. And I was just, okay, it naturally my instinct is right, okay, get your gloves on, we're going for it. Here we go.
mhm.
So I just dug in with everything I could to not have to be in this position. And for me, that was reaching out to in England, we say, in every Tom, Dick, and Harry.
Yeah, so do we. We say that here too. I think we got it from.
Okay.
Okay, so
So I said, right, I'm contacting every Tom, Dick, and Harry, letting them know I need them, I need them. And it was just brick wall, brick wall, brick wall. So in the end, it happened. And I, after I packed up as much of my stuff as I could, luckily my son, he he was at that age where he was a little bit oblivious to it all.
mm.
When I told him what was happening, he said to me, oh, yes, we're going to a mansion.
Oh wow.
That's, yeah, this was his mind and just,
Wow.
and I was, and it's so sweet to think
Mhm.
that's what he was thinking. But I realized, okay, I'm just going to have to hold it for both of us. I'm going to have to hold this, the feeling, the burden, I'm going to have to carry it for him because as well, coming from that abusive relationship, it was really, must have been really difficult for my son to have all those feelings and those emotions and the not knowing and what's happening. So then it was just like that continuation of this experience of, okay, here we go again.
Mm.
Um, so I packed up and I carried pretty much what I could in my two suitcases. So trying to pack up your bags,
Mm.
and I didn't have storage because I couldn't afford it. So I left a lot of my belongings in that house. I just didn't have anywhere to take it to, didn't have anywhere to put it, and unfortunately lost that. Um, then on the day itself, when the bailiff knocks at the door, the court warden, whatever you would call him, knocks at the door. We need you to leave the property now. And I felt quite calm, to be honest. I was like, okay, I know what I've done. I've packed up this. I'm ready. I've dropped my son at school, and then the landlord is standing there, just like, and
Oh,
I'm thinking, oh my gosh, she's standing right at the doorstep. And it was just not what I needed.
yes,
Not what,
yes, yes.
I understand that she wanted her property back, and I understand that it was probably very stressful for her. But anyway, on that day, I went to the council and I had my two suitcases,
You had
and
your life, is what you had.
yeah, all packed
All
up.
packed in these two suits. Yes, your life. Yep.
My life,
Yep. Yeah.
our life was literally a few school uniforms, um, a few, little bits of clothes for me, a few pairs of shoes, and that was it in
Yeah.
your bags. And I sat at the council office waiting to find out where I was going to be staying for pretty much from 9:30 a.m. until about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And they said, okay, you can go and we'll call you. So I picked up my son from school, and then I took him to the playground because we had nowhere to go. And I just let him play. And he just played and played with not a care in the world, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I just sat there thinking, oh, where are we going to stay tonight? Where are we going to stay? Um, Anyway, 4:30 came and I got the phone call. You're going to be staying in a shared temporary accommodation. And I was just in shock. I burst out into tears because I thought, shared? Who are we sharing with?
Right,
No,
right.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this shared temporary accommodation is pretty much like a hostel,
Mm-hmm.
where the only way I can explain it, in those horror films when you go up the hill to this big house up the hill, it gave me that impression as I approached it. It
Wow.
used to be an old care home,
Wow.
and there were so many doors, and it was very cold, like those slamming doors that every time you went through a door, it was a slam. It gave me like a feeling of a glorified prison
Mm-hmm.
because it was so many bang, bang, and then this door's there and that door's there. And and that was our home. That's what was going to be our home. The staff there were a little, there was very much underlying tones of don't cause trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this was in my mind, I'm just thinking, this is like a prison. Why would people say, complaining's not going to get you anywhere and things like this? This is what we were hearing. Um, the lift didn't work. We were on things like that.
It seems to me, like because you would have considered yourself probably homeless, right? Like so
Yeah,
now you are. And it seems to me, and don't, get me wrong on this, but when I used to work with homeless populations, there was a lot of myths and all these things that everybody had about people who didn't have a home or didn't have a place. You're lazy. You didn't, you did something terrible, so you lost your house. You must have been, you embezzle money. You do this, you do that, like all these different things. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, like that is not at all most of these individuals' situation at all, at
Yeah,
all. And so you
yeah,
wonder if that care home, which, well, it used to be a care home, that place you were staying, the hostel, they had some of that going on. They had the prejudices, they had the discriminatory remarks, they had every rhyme and reason probably as to why you were there, which probably did not fit at all the
of
reason behind it.
course. Of course. And that's such a good point that you make because there are so many stereotypes. Um, and in general, society has such a judgment on people. Well, you've done this and that's why you're there, or, you're a drug addict, or
Mm.
you've been to prison, or, and it's actually no, there's so many different people from different situations, and it could happen to anyone. Everyone is probably three paychecks away from losing whatever they have. Um, Unless they're very lucky and they have good friends who have got money or family who have got money, anyone could be in this position. I had my own house, I had a great job, I had my son, I had a relationship, and it just all flipped. Um, so and it was very humiliating how humiliating how the local authority deal with people in this position, like myself. There's this real air of judgment,
Mhm.
and there's a real, unfortunately, there isn't any sympathy, there isn't any even empathy. I don't know. There's no. They're taught to be very emotionless and very scripted. So it is a very difficult situation to be in that position where you are homeless and people are judging you because you're not living in your own home. Um, and also, I think it's difficult for children as well because they're they're not going home to a house that's their own, or a space that's their own. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be a house, as long as it's a space where they can feel comfortable, feel free to go and use the toilet in space and peace. And because when we were sharing bathrooms, toilets, kitchens, um, and you're in that building. There were drug addicts. There were people who was thieves. There were almost like prisoner cell block H sort of situations where Queen Bee, there was a little group of girls who wanted to kind of run things, and it was trying to intimidate people and things like that. Um, yeah, so it was a very difficult position, and I can see vulnerable people could be highly exploited when they're in these positions, highly exploited, and probably are. Um, and so when we were in the shared temporary accommodation, um, it was really difficult at first. We couldn't sleep because the walls are so thin. I remember our neighbor. He was this older gentleman, probably well, not older. He's probably a little bit older than me. I'm young. And,
Ah,
and back he was talking. He must have been on a date or whatever video. Sex talk, what's it called when you have phone sex, all of
oh,
that.
yes, yes.
And my son is trying to sleep. This is 10 o'clock at night because my son was struggling to get to sleep. And he can hear him doing all of his talking. And I'm just thinking, oh my gosh. And if this guy was every night, he was really loud, talking late in the night. The fire alarm kept going off constantly. Sometimes in the nighttime, because someone was smoking in their room.
Right.
And it was just, bit after bit. Oh, the biggest thing I remember, the heating. There was no heating in our, there was no, the radiator wasn't working on our side of the wing. I call it the West Wing. Sorry. And the radiator wasn't working. And I told the lady it was freezing. And I said to the lady that, oh, the manager, I said, the heater's not working. And she said, oh, we can't fix that now because they've drained all of the radiators. And then they would have to come back and re-drain all the radiators to fix that. I was thinking, really? I
No.
was just
What
like,
bunch of
so
that? Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Eventually, though, they changed management. So when you go into shared temporary accommodation, which I did, and you see people come and go, and some people come in and, you go through the hi, everyone's sort of trying to, at first, obviously, you'll go in and you'll be very quiet because you just don't know who you're talking to. You have to be cautious. Um, and the I was walking past certain people and I was thinking, okay, I'll just have to sort of let's see them a few times before I actually engage because I wanted to understand if they were safe to talk to. Um, and then there came times where you would sort of build relationships with people and it would sort of be, okay, you're fairly nice. And then they've gone. You see them walking out the door with their suitcases. And that was when it started to get really difficult because my son would say, Mum, why are they going? When are we getting our place?
Right.
And that was really difficult because I would see him get really upset. And I just said, it will be our turn soon. It will be our turn soon.
Yeah.
But in theory, what was happening was because when you go into a temporary accommodation, you have to follow a procedure. And this procedure is a full interrogation where they're going to ask you who you are, what you've done, what you've got, what bank details, not your bank details, how much money you have, your assets, etc., etc. And it's a real investigation of who you are. Um, so what happened? I have had mental health issues for a long time, and it was sort of the anxiety, the depression, things like that. And when I when I left my abusive relationship, I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression, and I was put on antidepressants. When we went through COVID, I lost the plot and I had like a mania, hypomanic mania, where I started gambling. I basically started losing the plot and I was climbing the walls and just my mind, I couldn't manage. So because I wasn't on the right medication, I started to go into this hypomania situation. So coming back now into the reason why, sorry, the reason why I was evicted, there was a slight little bit of arrears there as well.
Mhm.
Now, the council will say, local authority said, oh, it's your fault. You've done it. The reason you were evicted was because of the arrears. But yet the landlord said it's because she wanted the house back when we went to the
Oh,
courthouse.
wow.
So it was like, well, hold on a minute. Which one is it? Um, So I provided all the evidence. I provided psychiatrist reports. Provided doctors' reports, psychologist reports.
Mm.
And the local authority said to me, no, it's your lifestyle. That's why you're spending so much. It's your lifestyle. It's got nothing to do with your bipolar disorder, which I was diagnosed with whilst I was in temporary accommodation. I finally got my diagnosis from my psychiatrist. And even the local authorities, psychiatrists also said, yes, it can actually affect your ability to manage money.
Yes.
So, so my first decision from the council came back saying that I was intentionally homeless because they said it was my lifestyle. At that point, I realized I need help
Yeah.
because this is, I, I don't understand how they have more understanding than the psychiatrist of how my mind is working.
Mhm.
Um, and then we appealed it. And when I say we, I got a legal aid solicitor, which is a government funding solicitor, really, really good one. And he was amazing and he fought the local authority for me. He did all the laws and the section this and plus point one, and he was amazing.
Yep.
And when I looked at all of this and I thought, wow, how all the people who have come to this shared temporary accommodation and who have left because they did not have support, they did not have a legal aid solicitor. They've just accepted what's on the paper, intentionally homeless, and they've just had to be put out onto the street. We were nearly there on two occasions. They said, we're going to evict you because you've been found intentionally homeless. So I had two occasions when they said, you're going to leave. You're going to have to leave because we don't have a duty to care for you.
Wow.
So
Okay. Okay.
yeah,
So I've never heard that intentional homeless like label. Like, and I'm not saying there aren't people who do that. I know here in Florida, there's a lot of homeless people here in Florida because the weather's great. They can do what they want. They're out and about. But I know deep inside that if they could have a place to stay, they would be staying in a place. So there are these type of things that are happening here. I've seen them, but I've never heard of this. This was your choice, your decision. You just want to do this. This is a whim because that's what you
yeah,
want to do. You want to just be homeless. Like I
yeah.
that amazes me.
It goes back a little bit in the UK. There probably in the 80s, there was a lady called Margaret Thatcher who was the Prime Minister, and she allowed social housing. She allowed social housing tenants to buy their own home, which is great if people want to be
Right.
able to buy their own home. But what happened was a lot of people brought their homes, but there was no replacement. They didn't rebuild more homes. So now in the UK, there's no social housing, very, very few social housing left. Um, and what's happened now is that because there's so few social houses left, the local authorities have put this really thin criteria, very strict, limited criteria that you have to be a priority. You have to be either disabled with children. Um, it's that sort of, if you're a single person, no chance. There's just no chance. And if you've made yourself intentionally homeless by not paying rent, um, without mental reasons, or if you've been abusive, violent towards So they've put these criterias in place now, to reduce the amount of people. There used to be a time in the UK where you could say, oh, yeah, I've just got to sign up to the housing register, and in about a year or two, I'll get a house.
Wow.
That used to be the way. Um,
And that has
yeah.
changed. I know when I was thinking of living in the UK, in which I am now because I have a partner, they said to me, well, you'll want to make sure that you have a place that you can live because we're in the middle of a very big crisis, like a
Mhm.
housing crisis.
Yeah.
And there's been different towns and different villages I've been through, and just the amount of homeless people. And it is a lot of single people, people who do not have family, do not have things, and I'm like, wow, that's just it's sad because
It is.
I would imagine getting all of this stuff thrown at you in one moment, trying to hold it together for your son, trying to hold it the whole word uncertainty probably ran around and was felt all throughout your body. I imagine that you probably embodied some of that. Is that fair to
It,
say?
of course, it was for me, it was limbo. I just felt like I was in limbo, that constant waiting room of what is going on. Um,
Mm.
I used to go to bed like in tears, get my son into bed. And then I would just think, oh my gosh, how did this happen? How did I get here? Then you start thinking it's my fault, and then you feel guilty, and then your mind just starts. And I just said, wow, why? How could I have come from,
Mm.
I've already been through all of that abuse and all of that sort of situation in the relationship. And then now playing around with Mickey and Minnie was nothing in comparison to this. It was just,
Mhm.
it just really, yeah, it's really weird talking about it because that was like a whole different me,
Oh yeah, I understand.
you know.
Yeah, yeah, yes.
It's a whole different person. And I started to help us to sleep. My son and I would start listening to frequency music,
Oh yeah.
like, and that really started to help soothe us and soothe me, and it just started to make me feel a bit more at peace.
Mhm.
Um, and then I started sort of to tune in more to my spiritual side,
Mhm.
and just finding a little bit more peace, a bit more mindfulness, and trying to take my mind out of the environment. Um, I always say you're not your environment. You don't sort of try and think outside. Don't be in there with your body, if that makes any sense.
Yes.
It's is it disassociation when you're just it's like visualization, and it's just taking yourself out of that space. You could the way what I would start to do is hardly spend any time at the shared accommodation. Literally, it would be we would sleep there, and then it would be no, my son would be at school. I would just do some studying. I would go to work. Um, I would go to see friends or family, and we were hardly there because it was not it's just a stepping stone. It was just
Exactly.
you know and just meeting all the other families and meeting all the other women and hearing their stories. People were there from domestic abuse. um, there was a lot of those stories there too. And I started giving them some information.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was when it started.
Yes. Yep.
I was like, right, you need to get in touch with a legal aid solicitor. You need to make sure you're contacting everyone, all the council by emails. You need to make sure you have everything in writing, get all your bits together.
Mm.
And that was when I started to realize there's no support, additional support, especially for those people who have disabilities or who are vulnerable, or like some of the children who had autism, like my son, some of the mums who were in an abusive relationship. There were so many different people, groups of people who needed all this support. And the local agencies, either they were underfunded and couldn't help them, but also it just needed to be more detailed, you know. So that was when I started to think about Morris Mission.
Oh my God. Okay, so before we go there, how did you get out? Like how did you eventually leave the temporary
Yeah.
housing and move forward?
So what happened was, after the first decision came in, intentionally homeless, then my legal aid solicitor noticed that the local authority made an error in how they did their assessment. And can you imagine the amount of people who've been kicked out on errors?
Yes. Yes.
Shock, you know,
Yes.
ooh. So yeah, just to think, social services came round as well, and I was so scared. I thought they were going to take my son away, but that never happened, luckily, and thank God. And my legal aid solicitor challenged my first decision. And then again, it came back the second time, it came back saying still intentionally homeless. And then the third time, just before we were going to go to court, just before, they said, oh, we're going to give you a private temporary accommodation, sorry, a private accommodation. So
God.
basically, because they realized we were just going on, going on, going on, and we were going to take them to court, that was when they gave me, it was a negotiation of a private accommodation. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Well, your solicitor was an earth angel all the way through.
Definitely. And you know what? His last name was Morris.
Are you serious? Oh my God. Okay, that you can't get more like synchronized than that. Okay, talk about alignment.
I know, I know. So it was just from when I met him and I heard his name was Chris Morris, and I was like, oh, this is meant to be.
Yes,
This is it.
yes.
So once that was set up, well, if you think about it as well, local authorities are spending thousands and thousands of pounds on getting their lawyers to go to court cases and having to deal with all of this, these decisions, etc. They're spending so much money on that when they could be spending more money on preventing, these sort of situations in the first place. You know, it would just make such a difference. But so, yeah, so we were blessed. We were in shared temporary accommodation for a year. And there's some people I know who are in a lot longer. So, but most people you could be in there if there was no problems, no disputes or arguments, you might be there for maybe 5 months
Mhm.
or 6 months. But yeah, that's how it sort of went. And I said to myself, this is something needs to be done.
Yes.
And I saw that there was nothing out there. There was no agencies, there was no additional support. And I said to myself, right, I'm going to sit down and really think about this now. How am I going to do this?
Mm.
So I met a lot of different charities. And initially, I was thinking of doing a one-to-one service where I could give like a lived experience and give give these vulnerable families a bit of additional support on a one-to-one basis, like a mentorship.
Yes.
And I said to myself, And then one of the charities said to me, but you're just one person.
Yeah, yes, I was actually thinking that. I was like, okay, wait a minute, hold up.
So that was when I realized, no, okay, you're right. There's just one of me. So now it's workshops where, I have a group of people who are all these, vulnerable families who have been through, who are either going through temporary accommodation or pre-eviction. So, because if you get this information to them before it all happens, it's a much better chance of them being able to secure stable um, housing,
Mhm.
secure housing. Whereas if you get to them at the very end of the appeal process, there's just not no chance.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, this was how it all started to come into my head. Right, how do we do this? And then the process started. So last year, I really started to get do lots of research and find out how I could do it, who I could do it for,
Mm.
and I narrowed it down because I would like to help everyone, but
Sure, I know.
unfortunately, I'm one
I
person.
know.
So I narrowed it down. Morris Mission was born,
That's
and
beautiful. I love it.
yeah, so we are empowering vulnerable families who are going through temporary accommodation and eviction, and we educate and inform them so that they can find the tools and the resources to be able to have a better chance of being housed, um, and navigate the housing procedure. Because even the forms that you have to fill in, successfully to fill in one of those forms, you have to be a legal professional. So the system is set for people to fail. And there are so many different um, aspects to homelessness. It's related to education for the children, it's related to health. There's a lot of people with mental health issues who end up in this situation. It's related to domestic abuse because a lot of the women who need housing after they've been through that process. So there's such a big connection between it all. So this is where now I'm really sort of reaching out and trying to get the word out to say we're here
Mhm.
and
Now, do
let
you,
us.
now you said you offer like workshops, like,
Mhm.
so can you tell me just kind of what a workshop would look like if somebody was interested?
Yeah, sure, sure. So a workshop would involve so my lived experience.
Yep.
So I would briefly sort of touch on the points that we've covered today. Then I would go into Morris Mission and what we offer. And then it goes into the background of the housing situation,
Mhm.
because you have to give realistic expectations.
Yes.
You have to give that knowledge and education. Then it goes into tips and techniques, which is, giving those pointers of, right, you need to make sure your all of your paperwork is in one place, your evidence, your correspondence, your ID, everything, so that you're ready to have that to hand for the case. A timeline of events, that's really important as well, because then you can say, well, because they're going to ask, what happened on this day? And if you have all of these, yeah,
I mean, but what if you don't know?
you have to get sorry, a rough idea.
Okay.
Even if it's a rough idea, even if you said, well, probably in April, they contacted me. it's better than saying, I don't know when, maybe it was last
Right,
year.
right,
Maybe.
yeah. Oh, I know, I know.
Well, this is what I mean. It's like, you know, it's those little tips
Yes.
that, especially when you're in that mindset of my life has just what has gone on with my life, you need to sit with someone, especially, and just sort of say in person and say, okay, I've got this. Okay, I can do this. I can do that. And having someone who sees you and
Mm,
who listens to you and doesn't judge you and doesn't, there's that holistic approach to it as well.
mhm.
My workshops are very informal, very much, we're all sitting down in sort of a very comfortable setting when we're on the level because we're a community and we can all empathize with each other and we can build a community together because we're going through it or we've been through it.
Yes,
So
yes. And I
there's
think
that.
sometimes it's just having just even one person that says, I believe in you is critical.
Mm,
Like that solicitor for you was the person who said, I believe in you. I believe in your situation so much so that
mm,
we're going to keep banging the doors here. We're going to keep approaching the bench, so to speak.
yeah,
We're going to keep doing this on your behalf. And I mean, I think about what it must have felt like to leave that temporary housing and go to your to the private. I can only imagine that there was probably all sorts of mixed emotions, from sighs of relief to happy tears to I'm
yeah,
never going back there again to the quietness. There was probably just
yeah.
this sense of like, gosh, it's quiet. I can now have charge over my space.
Yeah, it was amazing because the day we walked into our to view, we had they say view, but there is no view. You just have to accept it. Otherwise, you're intentionally homeless again. Um, we came in and we came into the front room and we went, oh, because the front room is the size of our bedroom that my son and I had to sleep in, a regular sort of double bedroom size
Mm.
was with like a little fridge, a little sink. If you look at my Instagram, you'll see the size of the room. That was our living room, our dining room, our school homework room,
Gosh.
everything. And we came into our new place and we looked and we went, oh, wow, and it was just to be able to walk from your room to the toilet without having to bypass people and
Yes.
you
Yes.
know
And you have
and
separate rooms, right? Is that kind of how it is? Like you have to, there's nothing
yeah,
like, oh my God, I'm going to a different room.
I know, yeah,
Yeah. Oh my God. It's these little things
you
that
take for
we take
granted,
for granted. We take for
definitely.
granted. Wow.
But you know um it's really interesting because my son, before we went into shared temporary accommodation, he was developing like a normal little boy of, you know, 7, 8, normal little boy, fairly well, developing. He used to sleep in his own room. He used to generally be fine with everything. We got into the shared temporary accommodation and he started to show OCD behaviors, like obsessive hand washing. Um, he just always needed to be with me. Um, so we're working on that now because he's still, even though he has his own room, he sleeps with me. He's just very much me, me, me. I'm his safety, you
Yes.
know. So we're working on that,
Yeah.
and now we have that space.
Hmm.
We can slowly do that now. We can actually get back to his development and helping him to grow strong.
Yes. Oh wow.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
telling you, your story, Chantel, is remarkable.
Oh, thank you.
And it's remarkable the little miracles along the way. Like even though the shared temporary housing was like not the place to be and not a place you wanted to be, you had that though. Because
Yes.
like if you didn't have that, so it's like everything,
Yeah.
yes, was a stepping stone, but everything developed. It sounds like Morris Mission. I have to come see where you guys are when I return back to the UK. Um, it has developed. It's like through each of those stages. Had you have not gone through each of those stages, you wouldn't be
Mhm.
able to relate to the people that are coming to you. You wouldn't be able to give the pointers, the tips, the encouragement, the sense of hope. I imagine that your story probably provides a sense of hope for people. Like,
Definitely.
I
And
can get out of this, He can do it.
yeah,
I can do it.
yeah. And I think I really truly believe that everything that happened was done for me and not to me. I believe that it was all, it has developed me and it has shown me what my purpose in life is. Um, I've I've done various job roles in the past, but now I can say with Morris Mission, I found my purpose and
Wow.
I found the calling of what I want to be able to do. Give people hope, um, like hope in something. There is something there for you. There is something better. There is something to reach for. And having faith, you don't have to have faith in uh, a God or a religion. You just faith in yourself, believe in yourself and what you're able to achieve. And also charity, giving people giving that you don't have to, it doesn't have to be money. It could be giving them a time of day or letting them be seen and heard or just giving is such a gift. um and to feel that is a real blessing.
Yes, yes. Now, do you take the Morris Mission into schools? Like, do you take it around different places?
It's funny you should say that because one of the workshops I did, it was a domestic violence workshop, and she said, "Oh, this would be great to learn at schools." And I think that is something I would love to do. I think that's going to be one of, I'm going to start approaching secondary schools and college
Mm.
to sort of, it's more of a prevention better than cure, so that we can sort of explain to them the responsibilities of housing and what can happen if you're not careful.
Mhm.
You have to be a bit cautious of that. Um, yeah, I think it's important. It's not just for people who are going through it. I think it could be used as a pre-eviction situation too. But yeah, schools, um, youth clubs. I'm approaching some youth clubs at the moment as well. And yeah, we'll go from there.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm all about charity work. I really am. I'm all
Um,
about what it is that you stand for because we're just we live in a society that just is so independent and separate and this and that. And your situation that you found yourself in was kind of like forcing you into almost kind of this place of like, well, I want to be independent, but I can't be independent. I'm in this situation. And you've had to learn how to navigate that so that your independence that you have now is one where you're giving back to the community instead of it just being about all about you. Well, I'm
yeah,
independent. I'm going to do whatever the hell I want. I'm not going to care about my neighbor. And what you're saying is, no, actually, every time I step outside the door, I'm affecting something. Every time we talk to someone, we're affecting something. Being on this little podcast moment that we're doing together, you're going to affect something,
yeah,
someone, some place, some community. And there's going to be people that are just going to be like, I want to do this. And I can sense with you too, there's just a real trusting energy with you
mm,
that people can trust you and you follow through because if there's anything and as one who went through trafficking and I have my own story, I know what it is to find someone to trust someone who follows through, not somebody who says, "Oh, I'm going to help you," and then like they don't, and they
Mm.
leave it for weeks and months because it's really not bothering them. We know you're in pain, but hey,
Yeah.
and I love just your desire to really have an impact, and I think it's beautiful. So where can people find you, Chantel? Where?
Yes. So we're on with I've got a website which is
Hmm.
www.morrismission.com, and we're on YouTube, all the socials, YouTube, Insta, TikTok. Um, to be honest, I don't use much of social media.
Okay, no, I know. I was like, really? Okay. No,
Sorry. Anyway, website is best. Website www.morrismission.com, or Instagram is probably the best way to get in touch. And yeah, we're really just trying to get awareness out there and bring in it's a free workshop, so it's not
okay.
even, you don't have
Okay.
to pay, it's free. We're getting funding from grants, funding I'm doing a lot of funding applications. So it's really just to sort of support people out there. The more we can support, then that's really what I'm trying to achieve. And help others. But if you want
So
to give donations, you're welcome to
I
as
was
well. But
wondering, I was going to ask you like for donations, do you have something that you're donating towards currently? Or is there
yeah, currently, we are needing donations for setup fees, so venue hires, because at the moment, when you do the funding applications, sometimes they take a while, sort of 3 months, and you have to go through a process. So you might do the funding application, and they might say, "Well, no, we'll give it to someone else." So, but at the moment, we are trying to build funds for the venues, for insurances. It's like general setup fees.
yes.
So I can also send across the GoFundMe. I'll send you the link
Please
for the
do. Send me
GoFundMe.
all the links to your
Yeah,
thing so I can put them up there. So Chantel, is this just you or are you working with other people?
it's just me at the
It's just
moment.
you.
I know.
I are you wanting people to work with you? Is that something that you're
I I am, and I'm very blessed because I've had lots of people come to me and say they'd love to volunteer time,
Mhm.
and I've got therapists and healers, and I've got lots of different people. The thing is one because I'm still in the startup phase. I'm just trying to get everything set up first, and then I'll be happy to, and also funding because yes, it's nice to get volunteers, but at the same time, I would like to be able to sort of, be able to give something that we can have them as full time rather than just come and go, because it keeps a consistency for people who are needing more support, and they can come back to that same person and say, oh, well, this is what's happened. What should we do next?
absolutely.
Um, yeah, so it's a work in progress. It's going well. Lots of meetings, lots of networking to reach out to the local authorities. I've spoken to a lot of the local MPs, um, the government bodies, and lots of charities as well. So it's just bringing awareness at the moment, and we'll get
Well,
there. And
I
my
am I
social
am most definitely going to stop up to see you. Now, where are you located in England?
So we're in London at
Right
the
in
moment. We're sort of outskirts, more towards Dartford side.
okay.
But I am hoping once this is all set up, it can actually be a nationwide program. So it's something that can easily be, oh, getting chills.
Oh, I am too. I'm getting chills. I'm like, okay, there's something with this. So that's amazing, Chantel. Truly.
Yeah, I really feel it can. It's a template. There's a template structure here, that we can set up lived experiences with other people who have been through lived experiences in other areas, or I don't mind doing a bit of traveling. So even though I'm sort of London based, if anyone needs support externally out of London or nationwide, I'm definitely happy to come and give support.
Awesome. Chantel,
Yay.
thank you for coming here.
Thank
Thank you for just sharing your heart, sharing your energy. I really just appreciate what you do and I really honor what you do. And I know that that type of work is one that gosh, just it touches my heart when I think of the work that you're doing. And so I will definitely be in touch. And so for everybody who's watching this episode, it is Morris Mission that we are looking at. And so I will put all the links in the show notes for you. You can check them out. And let's donate. Let's give some things to this cause because there's nothing like doing something for such a time as this. You've heard it. You see the situations that are out there. And now is the time, as I would say to a lot of people, now is the time, if you can, to give, to help, to support, to continue to carry the generations forward through Morris Mission. So Chantel, thank you for being here. It's been a joy.
thank you, Ellen. Thanks for having me.
Sure
Thank you,
thing.
everyone.